Okay, good morning once again. Thank you for joining us for this online, it is a webinar, so it's online. And that is on the regulation and compliance in South Africa on the CBD oils in the industry that is used or marketed, I can actually also say. Just to say, I'll be your moderator today, and I am a steering member of the Cannabis Organization of the University of Pretoria, and we are the hosts of this. We're a very active group of people involved in various aspects of cannabis research. I must also just say that behind what I also do is my research is focused in pharmacology, in the Department of Pharmacology, where I work on drug development and especially, trying to find new drugs from using traditional remedies. And hence also a lot of toxicology and regulation around this to ensure safety of products. Now, we do know that cannabis is used very, very widely. And I think a lot of you have either used the oil or smoke cannabis, or everybody knows about cannabis that is on this call today. So the uses, as I said, are very wide. We also do know that there are many compounds in cannabis, and these can be either psychoactive or non-psychoactive. The very important thing, though, is that all products that are sold on the market legally have to undergo regulation. And in South Africa, that it has to be approved to the South African Health Products Regulatory Agency, or SAHPRA for short. So the uses and the legislation of it differs very widely worldwide. For recreational use, medicinal use, our biggest interest is the medicinal use. As you know, there was a lot of use of it, especially during the COVID period. There's a lot of prescribed uses for cannabis, be it for cancer, for patients for pain, for patients also with HIV, once again, pain, and also when they have got a loss of appetite and a low immunity. There's really, really a lot. However, our biggest problem is, if we look at the evidence, there's very little evidence about it. And the reason is why what we will be talking to today. The preparation of extracts are different. The composition of the active compounds and the ratios thereof in these compounds, in the plants themselves, because of the environment, the environmental conditions, the soil conditions, etc. And as I say, also the preparation. But we have to have a look at this, and how are we going to actually come up with a strategy where this is all moderated, that we do have good manufacturing practices. So I'm very fortunate to have with me today two people that will be giving brief talks, and then we'll be opening up for questions and answers. And I'd also like you to post your questions in the chat box while we go through with the questions so that we can answer everything. Now, the first presenter, I'm very privileged to know extremely, extremely well, and I'm very proud of her, and that is Sana. Now, Sana Akhtar did her master's with me, and her project was on the regulatory basis of looking at the regulations of the CBD. Do they comply to what we require with SAHPRA? This was also done at a time when it was not needed to go through SAHPRA. SAHPRA actually gave us, there was like a window period before, so that there could be some tests done on its efficacy, and and also on the looking at the compounds that it contains. Naturally, as I say, and she will also explain to you, these products are widely obtainable. You may have a neighbor making them. I mean, we had students even in the department that were making the oils and selling them. You can get them on the internet. They even in the U magazine, in the newspapers, they widely advertise. But let's have a look at what she has to say. Thereafter, we will also have Kumo Motibi, who is the co-CEO of the registered health and wellness brand Kana Stoners. and he will be telling us a bit about the composition as well and the uses for it of the plant, especially in traumatic injury. And let's have a look at the evidence that we can find there. But first, over to Sana for her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for that wonderful introduction. Much appreciated. I'm just going to share my presentation slides with everyone.
That's fine.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Prof. Good morning, everyone. As Prof mentioned, my name is Sana. I completed my master's within the Department of Pharmacology at the University of Pretoria in 2021. And then my area of expertise and my area of interest was regulatory pharmacology. And like Prof mentioned, when the cannabis laws and regulations were changing, at the time when I began my master's degree, this was a great this project was something that I was really excited to take on. So since completing my studies, I was privileged to get a job in industry where I now work at one of the leading pharmaceutical companies in South Africa within regulatory compliance. So my current roles and responsibilities in my job at the moment is also assessing label compliance and compliance of packaging material to the acts and regulations. So once again, it's quite very well aligned with my research. So today I will be presenting on cannabinoid profile and regulatory compliance of non-scheduled cannabinoid containing products in South Africa. So the cannabis plant has a complex biological profile containing over 400 chemical compounds. Roughly 60 of these are known as cannabinoids, of which the main and most well-known include the psychoactive cannabinoids delta-8 and delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol or THC, cannabinol or CBN, and tetrahydrocannabidiol or THC. Non-psychoactive cannabinoids also include cannabidiol or CBD, which is one of the most well-known cannabinoids, as well as cannabichromene, cannabigerol, cannabidiol, and the cannabinoid acids of THC and CBD. Cannabinoids exert their pharmacological effects via cannabinoid receptors found in the human endocannabinoid system. And the main cannabinoid receptors are the CB1 and CB2 receptors, which are found in the central nervous system and periphery and immune cells, respectively. Cannabis is known to have a variety of clinical indications and pharmacological and medicinal benefits, such as analgesia, appetite stimulation, and anti-emesis associated with certain medical conditions such as HIV, AIDS, and cancer. However, despite these benefits, the psychoactive properties of cannabis often complicate its use, and short and long-term effects of cannabis use may also lead to the development of addiction, dependence, and adverse drug reactions. Globally, cannabis is a popular recreational drug and is the world's most widely used illicit drug, usually sought after for its psychoactive effects. The legality of cannabis varies between countries and is subject to regulation by each country's own constitution and laws. So looking at the slide, you can see that cannabis still remains largely illegal or decriminalized for both medicinal or recreational use in most countries. And currently, there are only a few countries in which the use of medicinal or recreational cannabis has been legalized. However, 2021 and 2022 saw recreational cannabis use being legalized in countries such as Malta, Mexico, and Thailand. So in recent years, South Africa has seen momentous changes to its cannabis laws. In 2017, cannabidiol, or CBD, was downscheduled for industrial purposes, although cannabis still remained a prohibited Schedule 7 drug and strictly controlled substance, only available under certain conditions. In September 2018, the cultivation, possession, and use of cannabis for private consumption was legalized. However, it's important to note that at this time, cannabis-containing products, including extract cannabis oils, were not permitted to be cultivated in private and then sold to the public. But thereafter, in May 2019, the Minister of Health excluded certain CBD-containing preparations from being strictly regulated under the Medicines Act, Thus, CBD was considered an unscheduled substance, provided that preparations don't exceed a maximum daily dose of 20 milligrams CBD, while making a low risk or general health claim. These laws were then updated in May 2020 to also include sales packs that don't exceed 600 milligrams CBD as a complementary medicine, while only making a general health enhancement, health maintenance, or relief of minor symptoms claim. And previous S7 or Schedule 7 entries for cannabis, THC, and dronabinol were also deleted. Cannabis can be administered in many different formulations, and there are a variety of cannabis products available in South Africa, of which many are unscheduled and freely available. Products can be THC or CBD dominant, or a hybrid product consisting of both THC and CBD. Common cannabis products on the market include cigarettes and vapes, tablets and capsules, edibles and candies, tinctures, balms and lotions, as well as CBD oils. So this brings me to my aim or the purpose of my research, which was to determine the cannabinoid profile in cannabinoid-containing products and to determine the compliance of these products to South African regulations. So in order to do this, 2 batches of 6 commercially available CBD oils for analysis were chosen and purchased online from websites that advertise and sell CBD oils in South Africa. So for the purpose of anonymity, these were referred to as CBD oil A, B, C, D, E, and F. And the first batches of all these oils were purchased in January to February 2020, and then the second batches were purchased between July and August of 2020. Also, 4 cannabinoids were selected for analysis based on pharmacological action, concentration, and quantity. So my first 2 objectives were to optimize the analysis of the cannabinoid reference standard using the LC system, as well as the LC-MS system. And in this study, both targeted and untargeted analysis were performed on the 6 commercially available CBD oils, and optimization of each analyte was performed by direct infusion, followed by manual tuning of the mass spectrometer parameters on the analyst system. And then the optimized method providing the best peak shape, sensitivity, and mass spectrometric parameters was the final method that was chosen for analysis. My next 2 objectives were to quantify 4 selected cannabinoids in the purchased products using both methods. And these cannabinoids that were selected were CBD, THC, CBN, and THCA. And then my 4th objective was to analyze and compare different lot numbers of purchased products to assess quality. The optimized method was validated according to the International Conference on Harmonization, or ICH guidelines, and the limit of detection was determined using the calibration curve for each analyte, and calibration curves were developed at different concentrations of stock solution. This figure shows a chromatogram of the internal labeled isotope CBD-D3, or internal standard CBD-3, and reference standards for CBD, THC, and THC, THCA, and CBN spiked into a blank matrix. In this chromatogram, we can observe that the developed method is most sensitive for CBD and THC, seen by the greater intensities and as compared to CBN and THCA.
Is that true?
To assess intra and interday accuracy and precision, the standards were analyzed in triplicate on a single day to generate a set of calibration curves, which was expressed as a ratio of analyte peak area over peak area of the internal standard. And then a linear equation was established through 0 for each analyte, and then the coefficient of determination values were all above 0.97. The same calibration set was analyzed in triplicates on day 7 to assess analyte recovery and matrix effects. Analytes were also assessed in triplicates to determine the chemical stability of the analytical method. Analyte stability was assessed at ambient temperature on day 1 and again on day 7, and no degradation of analytes was observed after storage at ambient temperature for 1 week. So as you can see, the curves on both day 1 in blue and day 7 in orange are pretty much linear. All 4 cannabinoids also showed good recovery, and no matrix effects that could affect the quantitation of the analytes were observed, as suppression of the analytes at their respective retention times was not seen during the constant rate infusion. Okay, now onto the results. So so the results showed that CBD oil A, B, C, D, and E only contained CBD and no significant levels of THC, THCA, and CBN were detected. However, in CBD oil F, there was minimal CBD detected, and there were extremely high concentrations of THC and CBN detected. So I'm going to just take you through the results for each of the CBD oils. So looking at this data, you can see that the reported concentration on the bottle of CBD oil A was reported to be 800 milligrams, but the average measured concentration in batch number 1 was determined to be 1,000 milligrams or 1,080 milligrams, and in batch number 2, this was determined to be 480 milligrams, thus telling us that batch 1 was underlabeled and batch 2 was overlabeled. We can also see that there was no batch-to-batch conformity in terms of the CBD concentration between the two different batches that were purchased. And also important to note is that the sales pack actually exceeded the 600 milligrams of CBD. Looking at CBD oil B, we see that the reported concentration was 465 milligrams. And the average measured concentration in batch number 1 was 349 versus 848 in batch 2. So once again, they were mislabeled and no batch-to-batch conformity between the two batches was observed. In CBD oil C, it's important to note that the CBD oil C was purchased at 2 different strengths because due to availability. So the reported CBD concentration in batch number 1 was 468 milligrams, but the average measured CBD concentration was actually determined to be 595 milligrams according to this method. And then in batch number 2, the reported concentration was 156, whereas the average measured concentration was 442 milligrams. So both of them were underlabeled, and although they were different strains purchased, you can see that batch number 1, the average measured CBD concentration wasn't that far off from the reported CBD concentration on the label. So in CBD oil D, the reported CBD concentration was 400 milligrams, and then in batch 1, this was determined to be 591 milligrams, and then in batch 2, 474 milligrams of CBD. So both were underlabeled and there was no batch-to-batch conformity, although the value of 474 was the closest value between the reported and average CBD concentration that we observed. So in CBD oil E, the reported CBD concentration across both batches was 300 milligrams, and then the average CBD concentration that was measured in batch number 1 was 815 milligrams, and then 644 in batch number 2. So both were underlabeled, and you can see there was no batch-to-batch conformity. You can also observe that the average measured CBD concentration was extremely high compared to the reported CBD concentration on the label, and both batches exceeded the 600 milligrams per sales pack. So CBD oil F contained no advertised CBD concentration, so we could not compare CBD to what was measured with the validated method, but the measured CBD concentration on CBD oil F for batch number 1 was actually determined to be 0, and then 5 milligrams in batch number 2. But more concerning, what's more concerning is that if we look at the measured THC concentration in batch number 1, the method, according to the method, was determined to be 47.97 milligrams, and then in batch number 1, and in batch number 2, 131.5 milligrams of THC. Also, concentrations of CBN were detected in CBD oil F in both batch number 1 and batch number 2. So the development of a robust, validated LC-MS-MS method affirms the utilization of LC-MS for the detection and quantification of cannabinoids, and a targeted analysis of the 6 CBD oils indicated that some contained CBD concentrations that exceeded the 600 milligram CBD per sales pack, and most were mislabeled and failed to meet label claims, which may impact consumers purchasing CBD oils regularly to relieve symptoms. However, a possible explanation for the large differences between both advertised and measured CBD content could be due to the difference in methods used to quantify cannabinoid content, as LC-MS analysis is a very sensitive method, and it may be a more sensitive method compared to what others may have used to measure CBD content. Despite purporting to be a CBD oil, high concentrations of the psychoactive cannabinoids CBN and THC were detected and measured in one CBD oil, which was CBD oil F, and this could possibly be as a result of improper extraction and purification, or the possible use of different cannabis strains that are THC dominant. However, this is in contradiction of South African laws for CBD containing cannabis products considered to be S0 medicines, thus justifying the need for stricter regulations and enforcement of existing regulations. Furthermore, an assessment of the quality and batch-to-batch consistency or conformity of CBD oils also revealed that in all the purchased products, there were differences in cannabinoid content between batches of the same product. The stability curves indicated that degradation of analytes did not occur, and the signal-to-noise ratios for CBD demonstrated acceptable recovery. Thus, inconsistencies observed between the same batches of CBD oils are not likely to be attributed to an error in methodology, but rather a number of external factors. So without consistency between batches of the same CBD oils, therapeutic effects may either be unknowingly heightened or reduced between batches based on the quality of a particular batch. All pharmaceutical products available in South Africa are expected to adhere to SAHPRA's regulations in terms of quality and content, regardless of the medicine schedule. Additionally, an inspection of the immediate and outer container labels revealed that many labeling requirements for pharmaceutical products in South Africa were present on the majority of selected CBD oils, which you can see from this table in the slide. Although listed information was inconsistent between products, with the text being in English only. If you look at the last column, which is CBD, showing CBD oil F, you can see that this CBD oil contained absolutely no labeling information except for the inclusion of the proprietary name. Not even the reported CBD content was listed on the label. Warnings for complementary medicines in South Africa include the wording that this unregistered medicine has not been evaluated by SAHPRA for its quality, safety, or intended use, as well as the inclusion of the category and the class of the medicine. However, so you can see that majority of the CBD oils didn't have these warnings or this information stipulated on the labels. However, this could also be due to the grace period of 1 year that was given for unscheduled medicines. But the minimal warning and safety information on the selected CBD oils is indicative of the need to include more information in an effort to improve patient safety. And in future, any steps taken towards cannabis reform in South Africa should take the existing measures of the cannabis market into consideration. So my final research objective, which was to propose recommendations for the regulation of cannabinoid-containing products in South Africa. Sensitive, robust, and generally accepted methods must be developed and specified to accurately extract, purify, and quantify cannabinoids. This may ensure the production of quality products with minimal differences between batches. This is in addition to stricter enforcement of compliance to labeling requirements on CBD oils. South Africans are able to purchase them without a prescription or advice from healthcare professionals. So this emphasizes the importance of having safe, efficacious products with adequate labeling, safety information, as the reluctance of HCPs to suggest cannabis as treatment options for patients due to either a lack of knowledge on the pharmacological aspects or skepticism in the safety and quality of unregulated CBD oils on the market cannot be dismissed. Lastly, initiatives taken to promote the safe, efficacious use of CBD-containing products in South Africa will ensure that the future of cannabis in South Africa is brighter than its past. I'd like to also acknowledge the following for the assistance during my research. Thank you, everyone. That brings me to the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Sana. I think if you could just also put on your camera that everybody can see you, because we didn't do it in the beginning, and you can maybe stop sharing your presentation so that
yes.
you can the next one. Thank you very much. I think the most important thing, and thank you for a very good presentation, Sana, is it brings a lot of things to thought. and also I can really say the difficulty of actually developing a method that is robust and what all goes into the regulation of things and in the background for a product to actually reach the market. But we will speak a bit about that as well. And I also want to say, I would like you also to speak to this later on the batch 1 and batch 2. I don't think that came across that well, except here at the end. 2 batches of the same oil, which you said, but one was purchased in the beginning of the year, which we termed a summer batch, and one a winter batch to see about the environmental compounds. So we can also see if it's not in a tunnel, a growth tunnel or something, there can be problems. But let's speak about that a bit later, and then we will receive some questions. I see the questions are coming in. Please remember to put questions in the box. But for now, we're going to move over to Kumo, who is going to give us more personalized experience, and he is, as I said, the co-CEO of Canna Stoners, and the reason I think this comes from that personal experience, using it to help him after a traumatic injury. Kumo, let's see, we had a few problems with you earlier. And if I can ask that those that are not speaking, please just mute their audio, please. Kumo, if you could, oh, there we are, we see you. Okay, over to you. You can share your presentation.
Yes, how are you doing?
Well, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yes. Over to you.
Likewise. Not a problem. Thank you. Good day. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm Kumo, co-founder of Canna Stoners, and yes, a cannabis influencer as well as a cannabis advocate. So yes, regarding this topic that we have at hand, different batches and the regulatory forms that we need to have in South Africa, as well as the products that are used from the cannabis plant to have healing effects. So Canna Stoners is a cannabis product brand that promotes cannabis healing properties. We mainly specialize in the extraction of cannabis oil from the plant using a different system of extraction. We use a full spectrum oil, which is FECO-based. We use ethanol, which is also a good extraction because it helps with the edible side of the product. It doesn't have a lot of impurities. And the wonderful thing about CBD full spectrum is that it contains all cannabinoid properties that are in the plant. So your CBD, CBN, CBG, THC, as well as various other properties. So we make cannabis infused products, lollipops, sweets, basically anything that can be eaten. We can do by infusing the cannabis oil into various products. Regarding the different batches, I would say the other factor that contributes to this is how the plant was grown, as well as how the extraction was done. You might find that the plant doesn't have enough oxygen done properly. Regarding the extraction, you find that the prepping of the plants and solvents used may be different. The other part is the extraction rooms, as well as atmosphere or room temperatures that are used are very different in a way. So in essence, we need to have a specific strategy and a specific, what may I say, structure as to how we can regulate and how we can create a component as well as a construct as to how things should be and how things should be done. So regarding cannabis oil for healing traumatic incidents or traumatic situations, yes, I believe the best option for a person who has been through a traumatic experience to start off using the oil is go with small doses. People tend to take large doses, whereby it's gotten used to the large dose and it won't work effectively compared to if you were taking small batches over a period of time. For example, I would say if you take 10 milligrams for someone who is going through a traumatic experience and trying to leave pharmaceutical products and using the oil or the cannabis product, I would say the best option is for people to actually start in low dosage regularly, maybe even less than 5 milligrams. And if you take 5 milligrams over a period of time, let's say 4 or 5 days, and then you can increase the dosage after that particular 5 days. And if you have indeed seen the benefits and good side of it. So it can be used for numerous ailments and treatments of diseases such as your epilepsy, inflammation, insomnia. It can be used for weight stimulation, can be used for the benefits of your chest, coma. It can have a lot of good properties in it that we as the public don't see. Currently, the biggest misconception of cannabis is that it is a drug. Yes, indeed, it was classified as a drug. Since its decriminalization, it has popped up and made a lot of people are aware that it is indeed beneficial. And what we need is involvement of various cannabis brands as well as cannabis advocates and people, as well as our patients to indeed support and promote the benefit of the plant, as well as all of its properties that we see can be beneficial to our economy. It will create job employment. It will reduce more diseases. It can stimulate a lot of creativity because you can use the plant for different forms and different uses. So yes, the final result, I would say, we do indeed need to have a structure.
Puma, we're losing you a bit.
Whereby we can product. Can you hear me? Are you?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. I wonder maybe if it will help if you put your camera off.
Let me indeed do so then.
Yeah, okay. And then, sorry, continue. Sorry for that.
Lovely. No problem, no problem. So yes, I'm not sure where I left off, but I would say the regulations we need currently is to conform and make a structure whereby all cannabis brands, advocates, herbalists, as well as our patients come and promote, as well as state claim, as well as evidence of what the plant has done for them in terms of benefiting them as well as healing them. So we do need indeed a structure that can assist and benefit us in the future. So yes, I would say, yeah, we need to indeed come together and work as one in order to push the plant to a better form, as well as a point where people can see it as their way to a good and clean medicinal way. Thank you very much.
Oops, let me just put my camera on again. Thank you very much, Kumo, for that presentation of yours. And yes, I think a lot of your things actually corroborate what Sana was saying. The one thing that I do want to say is naturally when we do have regulation, the concentration of a compound is regulated so that we do not, I can nearly say, oversubscribe or take in more than we should of a compound because it's going to lead to adverse effects. There's a big fallacy naturally with people as well, the public, and I think they've got to be educated more about the constituents in it, as well as the fact that there's a fallacy. The more that you take, it's not going to make you better sooner. So it's actually the opposite effect. So I think that is very important also to note. So we've got quite a few questions that have come in from our attendees. And I would also like to invite you to actually pose the question directly yourself to the presenters. And I'm going to ask Sana to put on her camera again. We can try with you as well, Kumo, so that you can speak to our audience. Is there anybody that would like to ask a direct question, or then you can just unmute yourself? Everybody can unmute themselves. Maybe just put up your hand if you would like to ask a question. Okay, Kumar, we're going to try and see if we can see your face as well. All right, let's start off. Okay, so let me see, what was the first thing? Thank you. Okay, so Sana, that's saying thank you very much for the informative presentation and the amazing research topic, very relevant. Yes, it is, because I think if we want to get to some place, as Kumo has said, we've got to take hands to get this product, the extraction thereof, and the production standardized. It's very essential for our safety of our patients, and also really showing what is the efficacy. We have to be able to compare apples to apples, and we won't be able to do clinical trials if we're not starting off with the same product. I must also say there is also the big problem, except for analyzing only a few of the many cannabinoids in the products, is that we always look at the most important ones. And the CBD and the THC is actually the most important, and the ratios of the two, because it can have a more psychoactive effect. And one of the people were asking, and that's one of the questions of a listener, is were all these oils made from products that were in South Africa themselves? Just from South Africa, and that is extremely important. Sana?
That's a great question. Thank you. So actually, of the 6 purchased CBD oils, only 4 of them were manufactured in South Africa. I think one of them came from the US and another had come from Europe, but all 6 of them were still freely available in South Africa. I could easily go online and purchase them. 5 of them were actually purchased online, and then one of them was given to me by somebody because they had purchased that in a shop, and then had given it to me and said, you can test this one. And then I just purchased another one of that for batch number 2 online. But regardless, I think it is important to remember that regardless of where it comes from, because it's available in South Africa, it's still, every single CBD oil or any product needs to still adhere to the labeling guidelines as stipulated by SAHPRA.
Yes, I think, Sana, that's a big thing that you've spoken to, and you've also spoken about the 3 different strains. And that too in itself is important. Now, I do want to say that we also did some collaborative work with Nigeria. And where we find that with the CBD oils, there's a higher concentration of the CBD compared to the THC. In Nigeria, it's the opposite. There's very high concentrations of THC relative to the CBD. So they're seeing a lot of psychosis, and especially with the youngsters. So the hospitals are full of patients that have psychotic episodes. So, and the other thing that I wanted to say, so it is a different strain. There's also the inbreeding between new strains, like what they many times do between flowers and plants and everything, to actually get something that has more activity due to the active compounds. Would you like to comment on that?
No, that is a good point, Prof. I think also Kumo also touched on how the difference in cultivation of the actual cannabis plant affects the final concentration, because also it depending on the part of the plant that is used to make these extract cannabis oils, that also affects the final concentration, because cannabinoids can be situated in the different, they're situated in different parts of the actual plant. So depending on which part is used to make the CBD oils, it could be, like I mentioned in my presentation, a hybrid product, or it could be more THC dominant or CBD dominant, and depending on the type of strain that was used or the way in which the actual plants used were cultivated, depending on the season, there's actually a variety of external factors that can affect the concentration. And I think especially when these CBD oils don't go through your stability testing, your safety testing, your quality tests, it's scary to actually think about the fact that we don't actually know the true quantity of what's in these products at the end of the day.
Yes, and I'd also like to ask Kumo, because one of the things, as I was saying, it's such a vast combination of compounds in there. There might actually be, it's not always the ones with the highest concentration that might be the active ones, first of all. Second of all, there could be contaminants in this as well that we do not detect, because the methodology does not allow for that, because it was focused on the 4 compounds that we wanted to highlight and just determine, because of it being on the label, 2 of them being on the label, the other 2 are not naturally put on the labels, so that we know what they're stating compared to what it really is containing. The other thing that we also must know is there can be things like pesticides, poisoning, leaching of heavy metals, for instance, and if it's a hypercoagulator or concentrator of metals, this can also in itself have effects. Kumo, your response to this, please.
Yes, indeed. I believe that the pesticide issues and the growth of the plant in order for the extraction to take place, or before the extractions take place, is something that needs to be worked on, because you find that the growing methods are different. Some might be using one, and the other others might be using an indoor system. So you find that there might be more pesticides when you're outdoor and less pesticides when you're growing indoors. So regarding the growth of the plant, as well as how it should be prepped from start to finish, which is the oil, is going to be different from stage to stage, country to country, as well as from grower to grower. I am happy that Sana mentioned that most of the products or some of the products were also products from Europe or the Americas. Let's take, for example, they have been in, or they've had the benefit of having this plant legalized for more than 10 years now. South Africa we're still in infant stage, if I may say so. And I don't feel that it is indeed a trade smash for us not to have a specific structure as to how to test our products. Yes, you can get a COA, certificate of analysis, for your product or your oil. However, it might vary, like we had said, from stage to stage, depending on how you have prepped and grown. But regarding the Europeans and Americas, I feel that they should be having a particular structure right now, whereby they would know as to how can they actually regulate and calculate the potency of whatever oil or whatever product they are doing. For example, we as cornerstoners, what we do firstly is we take in the flour for testing. After we have took the flour for testing, we then prep the flour and then do our oil. From that oil, we then take that oil for testing. We then compare the flour and the oil. In most cases, yes, it is indeed different because you find that we are getting it from different people and our own as well. But you find that, yeah, it's never going to be the same because of the growth as well as our extraction rooms. We are not fortunate to be having proper extraction rooms, proper equipment. So yeah, it is indeed a train smash when you are indeed lacking somewhere somehow.
Oh, sorry, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Vanessa, you're
I'm
muted.
sorry about that. Sorry, Kumo. A follow-up question is, are you then letting an outside company determine the CBD concentration for you, and are you putting it on a label on your products?
Correct. We are indeed using a, I'm not sure if I can mention the name of it. We are using a third party to give us our certificate of analysis as to how much potency does our oil have. Yes, and then after that, we then cut it into doses, microdosing our edibles and products. From that, we do indeed label as to how many milligrams are on the particular product that might be a lollipop, 5 milligrams to 80 milligrams. So yeah, it all boils down to the certificate of analysis and how you divide and calculate your ratios. But we are using a third party.
Okay, no, that is good, and you are documenting the doses, so you will dilute it down because of the 20 milligram is the maximum that you're allowed per dose. The other thing that I also want to mention is that, and I'm sure a lot of people will know this, is that the part of the plant that's used is the flowers, as you said, that people do realize that. And then also, it is also important between male and female plants. Do you want to say something about that so that they're just aware of where it's coming from?
I didn't get that. Hey, could you please?
I was saying.
Hello?
I was saying. Okay, I said you did refer to the flowers that are used because that's the part that does produce the oils. But I think it's also important just to clarify between the male and the female plants, which ones are used. If you could just also just say to the audience. Are you struggling to hear me, Kumo? Okay, so I think I'll just answer that on his behalf. So it's only the female plants that are used, and it's only the flowers that are used. I see that there's a question from Fraser. Fraser, you can unmute and then you can pose your question.
Oh, thanks. Well, my first question was the one that's already been answered. So I think I can leave my question until the other ones are answered. And then if we've got time, I'll come back to my second one, if that's okay.
Okay, no, there's time.
Okay, so shall I go for it?
Yes, yes.
All right. I'll see if my video can also work. Right, okay. So my question bridges like Kumo's and Sana's presentations. And it's about marketing and different claims on marketing about what different oils do. So if you went to Clicks, for example, you'll see that there's a brand that will claim to assist with energy, and some CBD oil assists with sleep, and some CBD oil assists with different things. Is that related to the different CBD content, or is this regulated? The different claims that people can make with regard to what the different one does. So this one I've got like in front of me here claims to be a full spectrum extraction. So like it can do like everything. What's is this just a marketing ploy? Does it have any relationship to the content that we've been talking about? And is it regulated? Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to give over to Sana to answer that. But I wanted to also mention that's one thing of any herbal remedy. It's nearly like a cure-all. There's these claims that they do everything, and as I say, or heal everything. But when you really get down to it, and there's clinical trials where we try and actually compare and see what has happened, or even case studies, single case studies where we speak to people, the majority will tell you, yes, it works, but you know, it's not to say there's so many different juices, so many, but there is not solid proof for this. Sana, if you can just go on with this.
Thanks, Fraser, for the question. It was actually a really great question. All pharmaceutical products in South Africa, all the claims made on all pharmaceutical products definitely need to be verified and reviewed and checked before they go out into the market, whether this be on promotional materials or marketing material or the actual cartons and labels of the product itself. So whatever claims we do see surrounding CBD oils or complementary medicines, it does need to be reviewed before it goes out on the market. And this is something that usually, or it should be, if it's at a pharmaceutical company, it's usually done by cross-functional teams, whether it's marketing or regulatory compliance, medical affairs. So they should be regulated. We can't just be putting anything on the label and making crazy claims, but this is something that we often see on the cams because they are S0. People tend to just make really strange claims, well, not strange, but just very strong or superlative claims, like, you know, the one you mentioned, where is it full spectrum? What does that actually mean? Does that mean it can cure anything? Because remember, as I mentioned in my presentation as well, for these CBD oils to be considered a CAMS or an S0 product, they need to only make a general health or low risk claim. It shouldn't be a specific medical claim like treating to cure or treat any sort of illness other than just to be used for your general health enhancement.
Sarah, I think that you've hit the nail on the head. That's a big thing. It's these superfluous little sentences, because they can't say it's going to treat you for this disease. It's going to cure this disease. That's why they have these broad spectrum words without pinpointing what should be happening.
Yes.
I see Mark has a question as well now. Mark, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentations. And I think it just struck me so clearly how it's going to be really important to have this kind of research and analysis to get to a point where we have a sort of credible and well-organized industry in South Africa. So thanks for that work and the inputs. The question I had for both the speakers was, what do they think should be done to improve the regulation and ensure that we have sort of, you know, reliable and safe products? And, you know, so how could we regulate it in a way that's also not going to like kill the industry? You know, I think we need a dynamic industry, but we want it to be safe, and we want people to have that confidence that when they buy a product, it sort of does roughly what it says it's going to do, or it contains roughly what it says it contains on the bottle. So how could we regulate it without killing the industry? But also, I was interested in Fraser's question, so I just wanted to follow up on part of that, which is that, you know, you asked whether the level of CBD concentration could account for, you know, the different claims. Like one says it's going to help you sleep, while the other one says it's going to give you energy, which seems contradictory. Is that, but you know, is that to do with the different level of concentration or different kinds of content, or what could that be related to? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Should I go first or Kumo?
Yes, that's fine. You can
Okay.
go.
Okay, so Mark, to answer your question, personally, I think the biggest challenge that we're going to face in the cannabis industry is the first one is finding standardized methods for the extraction and cultivation and detection of cannabinoids, because that's the first step. It's very difficult, I think, to find or develop a method of extraction, because remember, some people, some companies or some manufacturers are on a larger scale and they may have the equipment and facilities. Others may be small scale manufacturers that have no equipment or minimal equipment to do these things. So the first, for me, or in my opinion, I would say the first step is actually, our first challenge is to find a standardized way in which we can do this to allow for the actual CBD, the final product, to be as pure and as, I would say, clean as possible, by removing all the impurities, removing the psychoactive cannabinoids, and only focusing on the actual CBD itself. So that is the first part in the challenge, because we still need to get to, we're not at that level yet. And I think it also goes back to what Fraser said, where he said that other countries like Europe or in the Western world, they've legalized, or cannabis has been legalized for use there for a number of years. We are still, so in South Africa, we're still new to, we haven't, or cannabis has only been recently legalized. So we still have a lot of catching up to do in terms of the quality and the content of our unregulated products. And then with that, it goes hand in hand with the education of both HCPs and patients, as well as improving the labeling compliance. Because if we're struggling to currently tackle the challenge of ensuring that there's a standardized method for the extraction, purification, and detection of cannabinoids, the one thing that we may be able to do is improve the labeling compliance or the safety information contained on these products. Because at the moment we can see that it's extremely, well, from the sample population that I have in my study, it's quite inconsistent. Different products had different things on them, not all the important information was listed. So I think stricter enforcement in terms of labeling compliance is necessary. It's just a matter of how do we enforce this, because these products are unregistered. They have not been evaluated by SAHPRA. So that is the second part of the challenge as well.
Kumo, would you like to add to that?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, you know, we need to do a lot of research in South Africa. I feel that the only way we can actually be at the forefront of this in Africa is for us to actually cannabis brands to work with universities. I feel like universities have that upper hand, because they do have the resources and financial muscle to actually do the research, educate, and create skills and development programs that will benefit brands as well as their public in knowing their benefits, as well as what is indeed good and what is bad. So yeah, the standardizing of these things is the challenge, because I feel like right now, the only people that are keeping or that are maybe putting or pulling aspect is the government in implementing reforms and changes. So we need to actually come together as the cannabis community, talk to universities to implement and push this research strategy, as well as education and programs, so that when we go and propose to the government that these are the benefits, these are the potential dangers if we don't, and these are the benefits if we do venture into the world and cannabis market. So yeah, universities, I would say you are at the forefront as well.
Well, thank you very much to both our speakers. I have to wrap up. Unfortunately, run out of time. There's still a number of questions in the question box. We will put it on our website for Coop, so you can visit the website. Mark, if you can quickly type the website link into the chat box, that we can answer them, and you can go and look at the answers for that. I think this can develop into a nice series also on how we are progressing. And this weekend in the conversation, one of our members, steering members of Coop, also published on the talk to the nation by our president, and also the mention of cannabis and the cannabis's use and the use going forward, because there is a lot of development required. We also have found out that there's legally a lot of use for it now in New Zealand and also in Australia for treatment of neurological disorders. It is now a claimed and approved treatment for that, for especially just depression, but there's also wide use in schizophrenia, bipolar disorders, and I think that is something we can discuss on another time, but also a lot of other ones as well. So visit the social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of those, and as well as our website, use that, and yeah, become more, you can find out more knowledge about that, but we will then also share the answers as well. Thank you once again. Thank you for the organizers of the session, and thank you for a fantastic discussion. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day further. Goodbye.
Thank you, Prof.